Thank you so much for having me. I'm here with you at the Texas AFL-CIO Constitutional Convention. I am really honored to be here with all of you, and I'm really excited to continue to build power and strong union power across Texas with each and every single one of you. I am Claudia Yoli. I am the proud executive director of Move Texas, where we work to unleash the political power of young people at every level of government. It is so wonderful to see so many people here prepared to lend your voices, your ears, and support as we demand a better life for working Americans and stand in solidarity with those fighting to unionize everywhere. Today, here together, if we pledge to keep organizing, we will make sure that things change in the state. Like many immigrants, my mother and I came to this country with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. And for many years, she lived in the shadows of a broken immigration system, working hard to provide for me. Growing up undocumented wasn't easy. For me, it meant not having a normal childhood, and for my family, it meant constantly trying to find a sense of belonging and living in fear that at any moment ICE could come knock on our front door and in a second shatter our sacrifices and our dreams. But as my mother and I embraced this new country like ours, it was through the community in El Paso of other young people around me that I found my own voice, my own power, and my own purpose as an organizer. As a DACA recipient who cannot vote, I have devoted my own organizing to empowering young people in my community, showing them that through organizing and by galvanizing their power, they can and they will make a difference in the world around them. And so much of my own story lives in the mission of Move Texas, which is to build the political power of young people. We build power through an evergreen, intentional, year-round model of organizing that focuses on civic education, issue advocacy, and most importantly, leadership development. At Move Texas, we understand that engaging a young person in the political process is not just something that you can do when there's an election coming up, but it requires year-round engagement to build trust in communities and foster a culture of civic responsibility among young people. Since our founding as a student chapter organization at the University of Texas in San Antonio in 2013, the young organizers at Move Texas have fundamentally shifted politics in our state, registering more than 150,000 voters across Texas. And we're not just registering voters. We're building a new and rising electorate. Of the voters that Move Texas turned out to vote just in the last election alone, 1/3 of them were first-time voters, and 60% of them were young people of color under the age of 30. And they are showing up time and time again, flexing that electoral muscle and building up the habit to become lifelong voters. As a result of this work, Texas had one of the most dramatic increases in youth voting in the past 3 midterm elections. 22% of young people in Texas turned out to vote in the 2022 midterms, and guess what, y'all? 2024 is just around the corner. Now, young people have been at the forefront of fighting for change, and we will continue to be. In fact, a majority of young people are already in the workforce, and that number has been steadily growing. As of last year, 60% of 16 to 24-year-olds were in the workplace. And these young workers, they're not just standing idly by. They are leading a new wave of the labor movement that is fundamentally changing not just working conditions, but our politics as a whole. From Starbucks to Amazon to our very own staff at Move Texas, young people are showing the communities that we serve that we are not just the future of Texas in politics and the workplace, we are the powerful present. In 2021, Move Texas became one of the first youth-led organizations in the country and one of the first youth nonprofits in Texas to sign a collective bargaining agreement. Our union leaders at Move Texas United and OPIU 277 Local fought for and won a contract that includes full benefits, a 32-hour work week, union representation on our boards, and worker transparency into our funding and partnerships. We built a contract for young people, by young people, and set new standards for our nonprofit partners across Texas and the country. And we are not alone at Move Texas. Support for unions is the highest that it's ever been in 50 years, in no small part because young people see the power of collective action to make a better future. We have to foster and unlock that growing power. That is why it's so important that we come together and ensure that every young person in this country can win their fight to unionize. No one should be exploited in the workplace. By arming young people with the tools and the resources they need to protect themselves, by giving them all of this and supporting them in organizing to come together, we can ensure that there is no labor fight that we cannot win. Together, we can ensure that the needs and interests of all Texans are met, especially the needs of young folks, people of color, and those with disabilities. Our movement was built in solidarity, and the political moment that we are living in calls us to stand united in that solidarity. Because we've all seen those awful headlines in Texas. The worst restrictions on our freedom to vote since the Jim Crow era, racially motivated and deadly shootings in our communities, the militarization of our border and forceful separation of immigrant families, a 6-week ban on abortion, the whitewashing of our history in our classrooms, bigoted attacks on trans youth, a state overreach in our local elections and their power to protect workers, and sadly, so many more. These extremist politicians have been passing policies to restrict our freedoms to learn, to live as our authentic selves, and to participate in our democracy, just to try and stir up a frenzy that pits us Texans across zip codes, genders, and backgrounds and faiths against each other. They think their attacks will keep us from coming together across the state for the resources that we all need and deserve. Rather than listening to everyday Texans from Houston to El Paso and our concerns, the concerns of the constituents who are the very reason they are in power, our governor and other detached politicians have chosen to govern only for their own greed. But our opponents know that everyday workers, working families, and our community share our values and favor our solutions. It's why they continue to deploy their decades-long divide and order to conquer strategy that relies on fear-mongering. They know their policies are unpopular, so they manufacture panic by pointing the fingers at scapegoats, from Black people to undocumented immigrants to transgender youth. And here with you today, we recommit ourselves to this fight. Because politics, as usual, is failing all of us. Young people, like me, deserve what we all expect and deserve from elected leadership. Decision makers who respond to our needs and take our issues seriously. The onslaught of anti-abortion, anti-trans, anti-worker, anti-democracy bills shows just how radically out of touch our legislators are with the realities that Texans are facing and the issues that we all most care about. And by shutting us out of the legislative process and unleashing police on peaceful protesters like they did in this last legislative session, it is clear that power-hungry politicians there are trying to rule over us, not represent us. Now, I think it's safe to say we've had enough. Have we had enough? They have failed to listen to us. They have failed to meet us where we are. So we are organizing, we are unionizing, and we're taking back our fucking state. Young Texans and young workers are putting these failed politicians on notice. This past legislative session, we held the first ever youth capital takeover. Alongside Texas Rising, Joel Texas, Youth Rise Texas, Deeds Not Words, and so many more partners, more than 350 young leaders from across Texas came to the Capitol for the very first time, and they joined together to advocate for themselves and their communities, making it one of the largest mobilizations to the Capitol in our state's history. Against the backdrop of the bigotry and bullshit of our state leaders, we brought together storytellers, poets, musicians, and drag queens to present a new vision for Texas, the real Texans that so many of us know, a Texas that knows our worth. But we must remember this: there is power in numbers, there is power in people, there is power in the movement, there is power in unions, and there is power in solidarity. It's time for our crusty and dusty senators and representatives to hear us, to see us, to begin to govern for us, because without us, they don't have a place in this legislative body. It's time for state leaders to also listen to the largest, most diverse, and most engaged electorate, the young people and young workers of Texas. Let's remind them of their responsibility to the people now and in the future, and hold them accountable when they fail us. And I know organizing can be taxing. I know we're very tired. But it's so rewarding when you see and you have these vast moments of support and solidarity as the one that I see here today. That will carry us forward in the face of what's to come. Because we know that organizing and unionizing, it's what saves us all and ensures that we all have a future that we can be proud of. Organizing in Texas is now an obligation that we have to one another. We're going to have to empower and invest in the young people and young workers from all walks of life, even those of us who cannot vote too, because this is our fight too. And we're going to have to embrace fully that spirit of defiance and civil disobedience that has time and time again changed the course of history. By coming together, we will build a Texas for all, not just a Texas for some. And remind these lawmakers that if they want to keep their jobs, they will too. Because young people continue to show up and show out for a free and fair Texas at the ballot box, in union halls, and beyond. Will you join me in sending a message? I want all of you to repeat after me. I am somebody, and I deserve full equality. Right here, right now. Young people are somebody, and we deserve full equality. Right here, right now. Workers are somebody, and we deserve full equality. Right here, right now. Thank you very much.